Everyone, this is Pam, CS Professor Pam with Jumpstart Code, continuing with our HTML foundation lessons here. This is lesson 4, and we are working through the content in internetingishard.com. We are on number 3, and I'm going to just go back here and make sure we know where we are. We are on Interneting is Hard. We're working through the HTML and CSS chapters here, and we have already worked through the basics, and we are now on links and images. All right, and we are using VS Code to do this. This particular document is using a different editor called Atom, but there's lots of ways to do anything in programming. All right, so in this lesson, we're going to focus on links, and in the next one, we will focus on images. Links and images require that we understand another part of HTML syntax, which is something called an attribute. So we have already seen that when we create tags in HTML, we do that using the angle bracket. And we create a tag, for example, this, for a paragraph. And this paragraph has a closing tag. And the closing tag has the slash in front of it. All right, but there are times when you want to add information about this tag, and you can do it using an attribute within the tag itself. All right, now, this particular lesson is going to do a lot of setup. We're going to work with multiple files. So let's first talk about getting things set up. So I am going to, I have a folder. I tell you guys what you should always do. I have a folder on my desktop called My Projects. And in that folder, I am going to create a new folder, and we're going to call it Links and Images. I want you to notice we're not going to put spaces in file names ever. There's going to be some issues with that. This lesson, we'll talk about it later on. But these are dashes in between. So I am going to, within this folder, create a new folder called Links and Images. All right. Now, I am going to open up VS Code and point it to this folder. So I will go to Open Folder, and you notice here, I'll just go to the top so we make sure we understand. Here's my desktop, here's my projects, and here's the folder I just created. Don't double click, just single click and select that folder. All right, so we are now pointed to that folder. All right, so now what we want to do is we're going to put several files within this folder. Okay, now typically your main page is always index.html, but just because of the nature of this lesson, we're not going to have an index.html. We're going to have some files with some very specific names here. So the first file I want to create is going to be links.html. So in this folder, I'm going to make a new file, and I'm going to save it as and call it links.html. Right? And in this folder, in this file, we are going to do our basic setup for a web page. Again, you could copy and paste this from here, but the way that you get really good at HTML syntax is by typing it. So we've got, and you can use some little shortcuts here. We've got doctype HTML. Then remember we have an HTML container. Inside of HTML, we always have a head section, and we have a body section. And notice they're separate. They're not nested inside of each other. Inside of the head section, we're going to put a title. And you notice if you do a typo, You see the editor tried to help me and give me a closing tag with that same thing. So it's really important to kind of pay attention as you are typing in. And we are going to just give it a title of links, and we're going to give it just an H1 with links in it. All right, so this is going to be links, and inside of the body, we're going to have one element, which is an H1, which is going to be links. Now remember, you should always test things. So I'm going to save this, and remember we talked about using live server. If I open this with live server, then you'll see what I get. I get a tab here, and I can see that my file is basically working. I'm just going to kind of bring this out separately so we can look at it side by side. All right, so this is like my working window here. All right, then we want to create another file in this folder called images.html. So again, file, new text file, we're going to save as images.html. And the same thing. Now I'm going to save myself a little time here in the video by copying this, but remember, it is really important for you to type this in, to just get the syntax through your fingers into your brain, okay? So we've got this one, and we will save all. And let me get my file up over here. And if I right click just to test it, don't trust anything, we can see we have a file here for images. Okay. We're going to have one more because we want to learn about something called absolute links and relative links. So notice here, we are actually going to create a new folder in this folder called miscellaneous, MISC, and put a new file in there. Now you can do this a couple of ways. You could actually go to your folder here, and you could create a new folder just right here in Windows. Or you could do it from within the editor here. So you see the little icons here. This is a new file. This is a new folder. So if I click here, I can get a new folder, and I can give it a name. And then in this folder, since I have it selected, if I click on a new file, you see it's taking me inside of there, and this file is going to be called extras. So again, let me go back over here, new file, extras.html. And if I go look at my file system here, if I click, here's the new folder, and we can see that there's a new file in there. All right, so we have done that. Now, this file, same thing. We're going to have just a basic title, and we're going to have an H1. So I am going to copy this, go into here. This is going to be extras, and this is going to be extras. Save all. Let's test it. And there we go. So it's working, right? All right. Now, we're going to want to put some images. We're going to be playing around with images. So all of this is just kind of setup work. It's very important. Websites have lots of files involved, and you have to really understand the best way to organize your files. So they give you a link to some images here. So if you click on this link, it will download a zip file that has a number of images in it, right? Here's a zip file. And what you want to do, so let me bring up my other file system here. So again, remember, here we are. Here's links and images. Here's where we are. I want you to grab, right? The zip file is actually going to come up like this. And if you click on it, the way to extract this, if I just drag this folder over here, remember, I'm right in my main links and images folder. So this is going to copy all those files over along with the folder. We want to have all our images. We want to organize things well. So I want all my images inside of a folder called images. And if you see what has happened over here in VS Code, I can now see that I've got those files in there, right? So now we have a good setup for what we're going to do. All right, so the first tag that we want to understand is how to create links. You know, we use links all the time in web pages when you click on something and it takes you to another page. Links are created with an element with the A tag. It stands for anchor. And this tag has an opening tag and a closing tag. So we're going to add this paragraph to the body element of links.html. Now again, just to make things easier here in the video, I'm going to copy a lot of this text, but I would really recommend that you type it in. So we're going to put this into the body element of links.html. So let me go over here. Here's my links.html page. So in the body, I'm going to put this here. So let me bring that page up so we can see what's going on as we save it. All right, so if I go over here and do save all, and we see here that we have, let's look at what we have. The line that we added is a paragraph that says this example is about links and notice within the paragraph we have nested an anchor element. So again, nesting is really important in web pages to understand that things can be nested inside of each other. So right now though, this doesn't look like a link. There's nothing that I can click on. So something is not quite right, okay? So yes, it's an A tag, but in order for it to be useful, we have to specify where do you want to go when you click this link. And we're going to use an attribute in order to do this. So we need to attach an attribute, and the name of the attribute is href. Now, this is again a bit of syntax. There's so much syntax to get familiar with, and you really should find a way to create notes for yourself. But we're going to find when we do images, the attribute we use is src for source. But when you use anchor tags, it's href. And if you switch them up, it's not going to work. All right, so look at what the changes we're going to add in here. Inside of the anchor tag, inside of it, we're going to put href equals, and what am I linking to? I'm linking to the images.html file. And notice that that has to be in quotes. It could be single quotes or double quotes. Either one would work the same. So inside of this A tag, href equals, now you notice my editor is bringing up double quotes for me, so that's fine. I don't have to change it to single quotes. You just have to be consistent. If you start with a double quote, you have to end with a double quote. All right? All right, let me get my page over here so we can see what happens. I'm going to do save all. And look at the change. Now this actually looks like a link, right? It's something that's clickable. And when I click on it, then it takes me to that page, right? Now, you know, a lot of things could go wrong in doing this. If, for example, you have a typo in your file name here, right? I'm adding an extra S. So if I save this, I go over here. Yes, I have a link. If I click on it, it says it can't find it. Now, when you get errors like this, you usually get some kind of feedback and you have to look at it carefully. So you look at what is it looking for? It's looking for a file called imagess.html, and you don't have a file by that name. So this gives you a clue that you have a typo here. All right, so you want to make sure and check for that. All right, so we have created our first link here. Okay. All right, so now when you are linking things, again, you have to be mindful of your file structure and understand the right way to set up the href path for doing this. We've got different types of links: absolute links, relative links, and root relative links, right? So we're going to understand those. All right, so we're going to add a little bit more content to our links.html file. Again, just to make things easy, I'm going to copy this, but you should type it in. So into my links.html file, after this line, we're putting this in here. Now, I want to, and this is one of the reasons why actually I like typing things in, because I want this to be properly indented. All right, now we haven't talked about this. This is a comment. Anytime you want to put comments in your code, if you want to put your name here at the top, a comment starts with my angle bracket, an exclamation point, and 2 dashes. This is really some kind of goofy syntax, but that's what it is, right? This is a comment. You see the color of this is different. That's what tells you. So that means the browser is not going to try to interpret this. This is just for documentation purposes, okay? And when you close your comment, you close it with dash dash close angle. So it's not exactly the opposite. You know, this one has an exclamation point, this one doesn't. So you have to be mindful of that. All right, so let's see what we have when we do that. So let's save this and bring up my file. Right, and this is what we added, right? This particular page is all about links. There are 3 kinds of links. So that's the content we've added. And we've started a UL, but we don't have any LIs yet. So that's why we're not seeing anything from this UL, right? All right, so let's just add in our first link here. We've got an absolute link. So anytime you want to point to a specific web page any place on the internet, then you can specify that full URL. And you specify it starting with the HTTP, the domain, and the path. So we are going to put a link to Mozilla reference. So I'm going to copy this, and we're going to add our first LI here. And notice, let's look at this syntax. We opened an LI, and I'm going to actually move this over so you can see the closing, that they match up. And inside of the list is an anchor tag, right? So let's save this and look at what changed. Right? So again, it's really important to look at the code and the response, because everything in programming is about cause and effect. So we have absolute links like to, and then notice whatever is inside of the A tag, right? So that's the reference, what it's going to. And then just trying to bring this over so you can see. Mozilla Developer Network, this particular content, that's going to be the clickable content, whatever is actually inside of the A tags, right? So let's see if this link works. So here, this looks like a link. If I click on it, then it takes me to that page on the internet, right? And this is a really good documentation page for you to bookmark. And if I go back, then it takes me back to my original page here, right? Now, so absolute links are good for directing users to a whole other website. Relative links are how you point to another file in your website, someplace in your structure of files. So what we're going to do, we're going to link to our extras.html file, right? Remember, if we look again at what we have in our file structure, we have right, so images.html is in the same place, but notice we have, remember we have another file that we put inside of miscellaneous folder that is called extras.html. So if I want to link to this extras file, then I have to give a reference that includes the folder that it's into. I have to say, go into this folder first and look for extras.html, which is in this folder, right? So let's copy this and add it to as another li, so it goes after this one. We'll save that. We'll take a look at our page. And here, when we click on that, it takes me to my extras page, right? So this is a good place for us to pause, and we will pick things up from here. But what we have learned so far is how we can link to either an entirely external website using a full URL, or how we can link to another file inside of my project. If it's at the same level of the file that I'm in, then you don't have to preface it with any sort of anything else. But if that file is inside of a folder, such as the extras file is, then you have to make sure that your path name includes that folder. And we will continue in the next lesson.